My brother, Fed Brown.
Fed Brown is here.
Yeah.
Ram-
First thing I sort of thought of when I thought of that was Roger Federer. I was like, oh shit, he's been watching tennis. Is he a big Federer fan? Like, no,
I,
of course not, you idiot. He's just finished Ramzan.
to be fair, I looked back at it and I was like, I have not joined the police force.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. The people
Yeah.
just tune off straight away.
He's a
No,
snitch. He's a snitch.
no.
Get him out of
Yeah,
here.
man. I am just well fed, and I am yeah. I'm enjoying Eid. I'm enjoying all things post Ramadan right now, and yeah, man, it's been a really nice month. I think we've talked about a lot on the podcast recently, and we talked about how loads of life lessons, loads of like spiritual lessons, which we'll get to some more spiritual
Mm,
questions later on today as well. We've got an interesting question in the Q&As.
yeah, man.
But the yeah, I just feel like it's been the best one yet of the last kind of couple of years. Um, the I said this last podcast. I was like, I don't want to forget the lessons that I've learned from this
Mm,
Ramazan. I think that's the biggest thing for me is that I've definitely learned some lessons, and then it's been in like we were talking about it before we came on air that when you have like less to focus on, you almost have like hypersensitivity to the things you do and you can focus on, and
mm,
that's so good because it gives you that introspection to the max, right? Like you're looking at
mm.
yourself with a magnifying glass, and every like two like every couple of minutes you feel, oh, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty, and you've got to just check that straight away. And
Yeah.
now coming out of Ramzan, having that lesson, wicked strapline, man. As soon as I said lesson, it just popped up.
Yeah.
Having that lesson, um, it's just still right there in my mind. Like, I woke up this morning and obviously you can eat now, you can drink water now, some water by my bed, and you can almost like go, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna have a nice big breakfast, and then you realize that no, my life doesn't warrant the time to have a life big breakfast. I've got
Mm,
planning for this and planning for that and clients and everything else still has to move on, but now I have to kind of take the lessons from the month and integrate them back in, um, while not kind of losing myself with them, not losing myself with the luxury of food, losing myself with the luxury of kind of water and the ease of the month. I need to
mm.
almost keep myself in that same disciplined mindset, man.
Yeah.
That's it, bro.
That's,
That's it.
yeah.
That's kind of the main kind of wrap up from Ramadan. And it's what I've decided. I think I decided on the last podcast. Me and my cousin Bilal, we're gonna
Mhm.
try and fast once a week, kind of going forward.
Mm.
Just to kind of keep that momentum going. Yeah, I mean, it would be great this time next year where if we can sit down and say, yep, fasted 52 times between last Ramzan and this Ramzan. I feel good for it. I feel kind of like that. I didn't really lose that lesson, and it's just kind of we just made a conscious decision to be ever present, and
Mm.
yeah, man, it'll just make us go from strength to strength.
Yeah. And like before we went live, you're talking about how um, you're talking about the oh man, with wasting time. You feel like you're wasting time
Mm.
now.
Yeah,
Is yeah, with the luxury of food coming back is also the burden of time.
that's it,
Is
man.
time
That's it.
lost?
It's crazy. It's crazy to think like before. Like, I kind of can't remember like a way that we were before. Like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's a whole month, but it's such a strong time. Like kind of it's such an imposing time that you very quickly forget that you need to make time for food, make time for eating food, cooking food, preparing food, shopping to buy food, and then make time for the inevitable like toilet that comes afterwards. And you're just like you need to factor all these things in, right? And I'm looking at kind of the freedom you get when you're fasting is
Mm.
that you don't have to do any of those things through your day. You just kind of get the time to focus on other things, focus on your prayer, focus on work that you need to do. And yes, you are depleted. Yes, you are kind of drained, but you can still appreciate that. You can sleep in the day. You can do all these things that you couldn't do before. But now you've got full routine back, full kind of food back. You've almost got to reorient yourself again. And I think it's really
Mm.
important that you just do that slowly, and you don't just dive back into
Yeah.
gorging yourself every day and losing track of time. And I think the fact that the month gave me so many lessons. Um, it's kind of a savior because I'm now on the other side of it, and I'm thinking that I need to really be present. I need to really be present, and I really definitely do not want to fall out of the habits that I kind of picked up during that month. So it's just a case that I need to think on them every day. And even though I have the time now to sit and enjoy myself with a meal or whatever, I need to be like, what's the bigger picture here? Do I
Mhm.
actually have this time, or am I kind of kidding myself right now? Am I wasting my time right now? And do I want to waste my time? Do I want to do those reps? And like the answer will always be no. You know what I mean? Like one of my friends just started speaking to me last night about charity work,
Mhm.
and she was just talking about like how we both worked at food places before. Like I used to work at Marks and Spencer. She worked at Asda, and she was just saying about the amount of like food wastage and the amount of places in the world that can benefit from this food. And you start thinking, like, okay, right, well, if I work X amount and then I earn X amount, but then I know that I want to put some of that money aside for a charity or for kind of giving, or maybe for building some kind of infrastructure to help a charity, or like kind of put food in people's mouths that are thousands of miles away. Well, then maybe I need to
Mhm.
work a little bit harder. Maybe I need to manage my time a little bit better. You know what I mean? And then that's a cause that I can definitely tie myself to. But then it has implications like here and now. Like I can't afford to waste 2 hours like going out, buying something like meal wise, coming back, preparing it, cooking it, sitting down, eating it slowly. That luxury, it is a luxury in a way, but also a burden in a way. So you need to just,
Mhm.
I think, have your odd days. Like Eid obviously is that day where you can slow down, you can spend a lot of time with family. But then the day after, literally the day after, I think it's very important that we just realign ourselves with what is the task, what is the goal right now, and how can we best get that done.
Mhm. So,
Mm.
is it like one of the lessons is also going to be coming out of Ramadan, is how to ramp back to incorporating food and drink and everything associated with that back into life without feeling like you're wasting time?
I think so. I think so. I think it's like efficiency with everything, and not
Mm.
getting too deep into I need to have this like certain meal or whatever. I'm very much of the opinion that I see food as like fuel, and it's especially we have the luxury to see food as fuel. I think when I say we, I mean people who are in a position in life where we're not having to go and hunt for our food, or we're not having to go and kind of walk miles and miles for any water. Um, it's almost like an indulgence. I think I personally have indulged with food in the past. I definitely know I have, in fact, and
Mm.
I don't want to have that be a vice of mine going forward. So, like you said,
Mm.
the timing around food, the preparation of food, the simplicity of food, because it also has implications in terms of if you eat and you overeat and you eat things that you're not supposed to, or the things that you necessarily don't agree with your stomach, then you're going to have other implications, like you might get sick, or you might have a few days where you're not in your game. And that really was a choice. Like if it happens by accident, you undercook something, overcook something, you get sick, okay, you messed up. But if you actively go out of your way to eat something that you know can mess you up, then you have no one to blame but yourself. You know what I mean? And then it kind of pulls you
Yeah.
off your game, and then you get more pissed off, and you could get ill. Could last could last longer than it needs to last. So I think it needs to be ever present in your awareness to be like, okay, what am I using this food for? Like, can I get it in, and can I just keep moving forward with the goals I have? Because I will enjoy my meals. I'd enjoy my meals on my birthday. I'd enjoy my meals on somebody on my sister's birthday, my family's, whatever's. But 90% of the time, 95% of the time, I want to use food as fuel, and
Mm.
that's it.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, man.
making sure you're functioning, you're performing with the food that you eat. So, yeah, okay.
100%, man. 100%. I think
Yeah.
we have busy lives. The profession we've chosen is not just our lives we're responsible for, but kind of some ways responsible for other people's lives as well. And
Mm.
that means that we need to just be on our game even more. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
that's we can, yeah. There's things I would have indulged in the past, and I remember how unorganized I kind of it made me. And I think people out
Mm.
there, it doesn't have to be food for you. It can make you. It can be anything else. If there's something that's that way in your life, you've got to be super aware and just cut it out there and then, man. You've really got to be understanding of what this thing is, what kind of role it plays in your life, and if it's aligning you with where you want to be, fine. But if it's not, then check it right now.
Yeah, fully. Yeah, I get that. And yeah, that's interesting. Is I think in terms of like I think because my opinion on it is also uh, is also showing like there's the reality as well. So like for example, like you're disciplined, right? So you're going to 95% of the time be using food as a fuel, and you're very clearly aligned with why you want to do that. And then for people who are coming from a place of not having made sound choices, not having a strategy about nutrition around nutrition, just very scattered because they're not in the shape they want to be and they want to get into a certain kind of shape. There's a process there, right? And I think there's room for understanding that you may make a choice which doesn't align with the goal that you want to get to because you're not perfect, but as long as it's a conscious choice and you've decided I'm going to eat that thing or I'm going to drink that thing, and it's not because it's just what I do and normally do, and it's not just because it's because the habits that you've had which have got you to where you are right now which you're not happy with, and you want to progress to something that you do want to get to, and it's not because of peer pressure, it's not because you've caved in or anything, it's because you've made a conscious choice, and then it's completely fine, because as long as it's aligning with your long-term goal and the decisions are converging to something that is in the long term for you to meet your goal is working in your favor, and it's a process to get to. Let's just say, they might be eating 20% well, but 80% not great, and then move to 30% well and 70% not great, and then 40, then 50, until it compounds on itself, so that the individual realizes that actually eating this way makes me feel really good. I'm going to keep doing that, and I perform better. I think clearer. I'm got a hell of a lot more energy, and so I'm going to get myself up to the point where I might do 95% of the time where I'm eating as well as I possibly can for the particular lifestyle that I'm aiming at and how healthy I want to feel. But then there's also, we each have our vices, and in a way it's acknowledging them to be like, I'm okay with that, and there are certain things that I'll never cut out, so even someone like me. So I guess there's a difference between you and I there as well, which is I've got a relationship with food. I love eating. Basically I just love the idea of it's something with mouthfeel but flavor, and and so I will I've got an indulgence for burgers and pizzas basically, and so if you're going to put it in front of me, I could easily I could eat blind if I wanted to. If I didn't want to be conscious, I could just keep going to town, and then I'll be lying prostrate on the floor about 6,000 calories later, lying on my front being like, that was awful, but it was so good at the same time. And but it's how often do I want to do that? And that's the question I want to ask myself. It is actually, it's not that often, but when I do it, I'm kind of happy that I've done it. So I've done it guilt-free. I'm not ashamed of it, and I'm still moving forward. I'm still in line most of the time with basically the way that I want to be, and so and how that translates into being healthy, being the shape that I want to be in. I think that's fine as well. I think that's what's good for people to understand, which is you just don't have to be all or nothing. If you're trying to be all or nothing, that's going to be it's going to be very difficult, because you just put a lot of restriction on yourself when you don't have the reps, as you say. You haven't put the reps in to get to a place where you can make the decisions like you do. Whereas I know this is how I see food, and this is how I view it, and this is how it helps me. Other people are you don't have those reps. You got to be patient with yourself and build up the habits to get you to the place where you are mostly having that healthy lifestyle, which serves your ultimate goal and your ultimate way of being.
I think what you're saying there is, we're using food as an example, but it's for anything. It's you have to have the discipline of keeping yourself fully under your own control for a little bit of time, and then you can start to afford yourself some autonomy. And it's I think a lot of people, food is a great example, because people are just marketed to death with food, man. And I think it's such a sad thing that so many people just kind of fall into, and like it doesn't need to be this way. You know what I mean? It really doesn't need to be this way. And I think that if you have that time where you can possibly analyze yourself when you're around this quote unquote like vice,
Mm.
I think you'll see that you're just not somebody that you necessarily like being if you're there too often, and it
Yeah.
can really distract from your day. And that in doing that, I think there's so many other ways you can feel fulfilled, but it's that you run back to the same thing a lot of the time, and in doing that, it's if you do it enough times, it's no longer like a vice. It's like a habit, isn't it? It's like you've
Mhm.
formed that habit now, and
Yeah.
you almost need to. Then it becomes very very hard to break. Um, Whereas if you're just fully in the moment, and I think this is something that can be a foreign concept to a lot of people, because we had Eid celebrations yesterday, and we were speaking to my sister's husband, and he was you could tell when you speak to somebody that definitely gets it.
Mm.
There's because they've done those reps, right? They've done those reps in awareness of themselves,
Yeah.
in specific situations. You can see that okay, I'm getting through to this person, but sometimes you get it where there's almost like not a resistance, but like
Mm.
you can see. It's interesting. Eckhart Tolle calls this identifying with. Oh, what does he call it? He calls it something in his book, The Power of Now. Pain
Mm.
body. He calls it the pain body. He
Yeah.
said
Okay.
you're identifying with the pain body, and you're kind of almost saying to yourself, like when somebody will say to you, like you've got to kind of be aware of how you are in that moment, and just sit with it for a second, and then someone will be like, yeah, but it's just hard, isn't it? It's just like hard to like that burger's in front of me, and like, oh, I'll pass this place
Yeah.
every night on the way home from work, and oh, it just smells good. It's like, yeah, but what you're doing is you're doing reps in feeling a certain way, and then being okay with feeling that way. Like that's you're almost letting it get away with you,
Mm.
and letting yourself get away with it. And again, like we said earlier, like having that time where you're just, no, this is exactly not what I'm going to do. I think it's so powerful for someone to actualize on that, and then on the back of that, you can use that willpower. It's like a resource you can then go and spend, and like almost like upskill yourself. You have now this like this little well of like self awareness, and what was the word I use? Willpower, and that
Mm.
willpower can be spread across the rest of your life. So now you can actualize on the course that you've always wanted to do, or you can actualize on saving the money you always want to save. You know what I mean? There's so many ways in which you can then trade this commodity for leveling up in life, but it's really you have to actualize on it in one area of your life first, and
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, cool, I can now actualize it in others. And I think that's such a key life lesson that I wish I had learned much sooner, but learning it now, I can see the benefits of it. And like I said, from last Ramzan to this Ramzan, this is the biggest thing, and I know that if it's on me now, like I got to keep myself accountable. That on Thursday, that's the day we picked. I'll be fasting again, and that's the day
Mm.
that it's it's on. You know what I mean? Like I have to kind of meet the standard and keep myself accountable. And like I said, once I've done those reps, I know that it will go a way where I'll be able to use what I gain from doing those reps in other ways. It's not just that I do that rep and the benefit starts and stops there. It's never the case. You're always going to be able to use that one experience to further benefit three or four, five, six other experiences, and then the branch kind of just continues and continues, right?
Yeah, fully, man. Because the principles of doing well in a domain can be carried over into so many things because it's principles. It's not a method. It's
Mm-hmm.
principles. And yeah, you're right. It's like identifying with the pain body because I think a part of it is you know, I can think back on clients. I can think back on recent conversations with people. Is it's like the death of a part of you, and that's a difficult thing to take
Yeah.
because you know you're in a situation where like basically if you've got a problem that you're looking for a solution for, you know, if you're coming to see a trainer, it's like we're delighted that you're basically at that position, at that place where you're like, I accept. guidance to get me into a better place for myself, because that's such a big step. And we're like, number one, we're super proud of you for taking that step in the first place. You should be proud of yourself for taking that step, because you're getting real with yourself about where you are right now and how that doesn't match up with your truest potential. And then so when you start traveling that journey, you may have been that way a certain amount of time, which is long enough for you to fully identify with that place. So, for example, it was like talking with my housemate, and we both. He had the identity of, like, he was quite attached to the identity of somebody who used to eat a stupid amount of food for no reason, just because it was like, a thing that him and friends did. And you do that long enough, and it's like, if you don't do that, everybody's like, what the hell is wrong with you? And then for me, I was the dude who, like, with a certain group of friends, I would just, because I would know who's not going to finish their plate of food when we're out to dinner, and I would just like tactically position myself next to this person, right? And then I'll be like, I know they're not going to finish that. They're saying they're super hungry. They ain't going to finish that. And then when the waiters come around to pick up everybody's food, I'm like, whoa, you ain't going anywhere with that, man. Give it here. So I would just be the dude who finishes everybody else's food as well.
Wow,
and
that's so funny.
yeah, and it was great, because it just means like, it's like I had tapas. I didn't have dinner. I just had a bit of everyone's food, right? And everybody would be like, man, you just a bin, you're just a Hoover. And I'm like, yeah, thank you for your food, basically. But then after a while, it was like, I don't want to do that every time we go out, right? And then when I stopped doing that, it was like, what's going on? Is everything okay? You changed, man. You changed, and it might be said in like a joking way, but then it's also like, shit. It's like, if I stop doing that, does that make me different to people whose opinion I might value, because they're friends and stuff. But that's like on a very minor scale, because that's something generally I generally don't give a shit. It's like, I'll do what I want to do, but that's a microcosm of what people go through. There's people who are basically, they will end up shedding a part of themselves, which everybody might know about, and so when they're on that journey, they'll go back to points where they identify with that pain body, right? And if when that happens, there's that disappointment. There's the two words I can think of are like guilt and shame. Like, you feel guilty or they feel shameful, which is going to be worse. And it's like, this is me. This is, I just can't shake it. And that's where we come in and be like, no, you're on the right track. There's always going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be some major bumps in the road, but you just got to keep going. And so when somebody has done what you've described, which is stood in the face of the decision that they would normally make and are fully aware and say, no, I'm not going to do that because that doesn't serve me well. I'm on a better path. I'm on a better journey. The power in that, it just seems like such a small thing. But it's not. It's just it resonates deep with somebody. It resonates deep in the soul, and then that pushes and pulls. Like, it pushes you, gives you that kind of feeling like, yeah, this is, I can do this. I can do this, and then it keeps pulling you towards the goal that you have. So yeah, man. Just to add to that, just to stack on what you're saying, it's a big thing. It's a big thing.
Too right. I think one. Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead, man.
I think one thing you said about the pain body, I think it's a really interesting concept. I'm going to read that chapter again in his book. The book is called The Power of Now. I remember, I distinctly remember it's the first 3 chapters that I got into, and they really, really outlined it well for me. I almost like walked away from those first 3 chapters. So like, okay, cool. That's like, I can identify it in myself. I can see when I'm being in that space, and I can see somebody else when they're being in that space. And I'm just like, okay, like, it becomes very apparent the way he puts it across. It just spoke to me a lot. And I think one thing you said there about the wider people around you and how they can almost remind you of this, like, you're trying to move yourself out of that space, but then you have things around you that remind you of kind of who you used to be, or like you said, people kind of questioning you, oh, you're not the same person anymore. That makes things super difficult. That makes things really, really hard. I think that's just a test. That's literally just a test for you to be like, okay, cool, I'm going to get this. I'm going to get this almost like calling out of my new self. And I've got to be strong enough in my will to be like, yep, this is me. I'm cool with it. I'm secure with it. I was a certain way, but now I fancy being this way. And just kind of just being upfront with it and being totally secure in yourself, because you
Mm.
know what you didn't make you happy, but this is you actualizing on it. It's like just the other side of that converse, just the other side of that statement is going to make you feel infinitely better about yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like when you set up for this, it's almost like you can see the pain in like, oh, but what are they going to say, or what's this person going to say, or how will they react, or you can see the opportunity and be like, oh, they're going to help me get the new reps. They're going to help me get
Mm.
those new reps where it's going to make me form myself. You know what I mean? Like those people are actually my opportunity, and
Yeah.
the people that are kind of closest to you should be the most caring of you, right? And I think you can see it like they can indulge you almost. They can kind of, you can see it like, oh, they can keep you where you are, or you can use them as obstacles to kind of, once you clear one
Mm.
obstacle, it gives you momentum to be like, yeah, the next one's going to be easy. And then you kind of get from that one to the next and to the next. And before you know it, you've got a head of steam, and yeah, nothing's stopping you now. You know what I mean?
Can't stop me. Can't hold me back.
No way. No way.
Can't stop. Won't stop. Yeah.
Love it, man. Love it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a,
Yeah.
that was a proper segue
That's
off the
yeah.
Ramadan chat, but I mean, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's polished that one off nicely.
Yeah, no, that's pretty true, man. And it's yeah, I like how, because you got to, yeah, you got to frame it for yourself, and
Mm,
like because it's very easy to be like, oh, this is a challenge, and it's coming from people who are close to me potentially, which you know it usually is because they know you to be a certain way, so you're getting that challenge, and you're like, oh shit, and it sets you back, and but it's difficult to feel strong in the moment, but then that's why I'm very keen for any clients that I pick up is like the goal that you have fits into a wider vision of yourself, right? So where do you see yourself? Like, okay, you get into the shape that you want to get into, or you're moving better, you're feeling better in your body in the sense that you feel confident, you know, you feel invincible, let's say, in your own, whatever your own definition of that is it makes you feel your best version of yourself. Now, what does that look like 3, 5, 10, 20 years from now if you live in that body? You know, and then do the opposite. If you do nothing about it, what does that look like 3, 5, 10, 20 years from now? And you know, generally there's a massive difference between the two. You know, you do
mm,
something that serves you well, and in 20 years' time, you're going to be thinking, I'm living a pretty good life, whatever that looks like to you. If you're not, you're on the other side of the spectrum. You're going to be like, well, I didn't do anything with myself. You know, I didn't live in the kind of body that I could have lived in. You know, it goes back to that Socrates quote, like, you know, paraphrase it, but a man who hasn't like developed himself physically, or at least tried to, is essentially is just useless. It's just a waste. It's just a waste. I'll find the exact quote. It's obviously put a lot more articulately than I just did. But the point is if you don't figure out how to use your body well, then you know you've missed out a
mm,
big piece of your life.
mm,
And so um, there's so the point there is keeping your eyes on the prize and making sure you stay in contact with your vision. And so
mm,
when you are challenged in that way, where you have somebody who, you know, says something about you and it might just, you know, pull you back into that old self and to that pain body, instead you end up reminding yourself of what your vision is, and then cracking on and making the decisions in alignment with that. And so I think it's a very powerful practice to keep the goal at the front of your mind and keep the vision at the front of your mind.
too right, man. Too right. That's there's a lot in that. I think there's a lot in that last kind of 28 minutes where you can kind of go back and unpack, and just see where you fit in, see
Mm.
where the people around you kind of what they present. And it's like it's just alignment at the end of the day, right? It's like kind of if you aligned with people who want to keep you where you are now, well then you're kind of living your life on their terms. Like you have a
Yeah.
life, but you're not actualizing on yourself. And then what the wider implication toward that for me becomes like, okay, I want to have a family one day. I want to have like I want to be kind of the head of a table one day. Whereas
Mm.
like where will I lead that table if I've always been led my entire life? Like don't get me wrong, we always need mentors, but I need
Yeah.
to be able to kind of spread my wings and kind of be my own man,
Completely.
and make my own mistakes for sure because that's part of it. But if I kind of stay within that bubble, then I just become weak. You know what I mean? I just become like a follower, not any kind of leader.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, like it's that what's that? I've seen that. It's on Instagram a few times where like you make some choices, then you remember who's watching, and like that kind of spurs you on even more. Like kind of the future self is watching, your kind of kids in the future are watching, people, the wider population kind of watching, and then it's all kind of linked into. We talked about this a few weeks ago in terms of like how powerful are we really? Like what kind of change can we actually have in the world? And if you stretch it out to that, then really your why as to why you can't actually spend too much time making that meal becomes very strong indeed. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
now I have such a pull because the whole world kind of depends on me. And like you can put it there, you don't have to put it there, but I kind of want to put it there and be like, okay, well, what can I do if I actually have this weight on my shoulders? Like, I want to see whether I break. And if I do break, cool, I'll come back and reassess. But if I don't, then maybe we can do some pretty cool things.
Well, that's it, man. That's the growth
Mm,
mindset right there as well. I think
bam,
it's
bam.
yeah, it's just you've got to get yourself out of that zone of feeling like everything has to be perfect and everything has to be right, because sure as life itself is, you're going to fuck up a few things along the way, right? And you just might as well just embrace that, and that's the perfect way of doing it. Take on, it's basically, that's a different way of saying, like, what Jordan Peterson's been saying this whole time, which is, bear the burden of responsibility, and and you just don't know how amazing your life could be, essentially.
Mm,
And
mm,
because you got to take on responsibility, because that's where the meaning comes from as well. Essentially, is taking on responsibility for yourself. And um, and so, yeah, what you said there is very, very like growth orientated. All you see is growth. Brown is still here.
yeah. He's lingering in the background,
Yeah,
just sprinkling
he ain't
some
going
pixie
away, man.
dust. Nah, man, he's here. He's here for life. He's here for life.
He's here
I
for
just had
life.
a
He's
thought. I was like, I can't wait to put this kind of podcast on for somebody that I want to influence in that positive way. You know what I mean, it doesn't matter who it is. Just like, be okay. Hopefully, this does that for people that are listening right now. But then anybody, you can kind of use this and kind of be like, okay, right, well, use the concepts from it. You don't have to put it on for them. You can kind of whatever. But it's powerful, man. It's seriously powerful. Like this is for me. It's how I want to live my life. You know what I mean? It's how I kind of judge myself.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
it's better that way, because you live less in fear that way as well. You're if you're growth orientated, you're just
Yeah.
less afraid of making mistakes, or rather, you embrace, because you're never not going to be afraid, but you embrace that fear, because it's basically your moment of greatest courage is right at the peak of your fear, and that's
Mm-hmm.
also the moment where you're about to do something great for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Last time I said intuition is scientific fact, courage and fear, that relationship, that's scientific fact as well. So if you're feeling so shit scared, good, because that's the exact moment that you're about to do the most courageous thing you need to do to have a better life.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. That's brilliant, man. I love that. I absolutely love that. That's like the TJ sent me this thing this week about Customato. This is Mike
Yeah.
Tyson's trainer, and he was saying in
Mm-hmm.
the video, he was saying it was proper old school video, I think kind of black and white in almost, and he was saying that like the difference between the hero and the coward is what they do in that moment, and you like they both feel the same fear, they both feel exactly the same fear, like, but one will just pick one path and one will pick the other path, and you want to have had a life that has had you doing the reps in picking the right path, because when it comes to making the big decision, because you only get a couple of those big decisions in your life, you want to be able to go the right way. You want to, because those ones can shape a lot about yourself, you know what I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
getting it right in those like small get windows of opportunity is a matter of
Mm-hmm.
preparation, right? And you've got to
Yep.
prepare every chance you get.
Mm-hmm. Completely,
Yeah,
man.
man.
There's and like in those windows as well, like because I've been delving into, like, basically that book I was telling you about, The Secret Life of the Mind. It's
Mm-hmm.
is one of those where it's super interesting, and it's like it is a page turner, but I don't do it with that because I'll read something and I'm like, I need to understand that. I need to dissect that because it's stuff about, it's essentially about, origins of thought and how we make decisions and how we even generate self-belief and self-trust and confidence and stuff. And then, and the intuition stuff as well is like, it was just talking about how making conscious decisions, making decisions that come from our unconscious, and how they follow the same kind of pathways. And that kind of reminded me of that as well, which is, if you're unsure of the decisions that you're going to make, then what's interesting is your brain just kind of randomly fires a 50-50 shot. So if it's like, I'm going to decide between this and this, and but there's a lot of inputs for either one of those decisions, so say it's like a big life choice, and so then like there's a lot of variables that go into making that life choice. It could be like buying a house, it could be what's who's the life partner that I'm going to pick, and all that kind of stuff. And like you can't leave them all to like conscious choice, because it's just, like when you're picking a partner, it's never going to be like, oh, they tick all these boxes, because anybody who ever does that, like they say hello to divorce about 5 to 7 years later, right? And whereas there's something about listening to your gut and speaking from and listen to your heart, which is what we talked about last time. But it's like your brain does this funny thing where it literally fires a signal randomly through one pathway, so that if you're stuck on a decision, it's like the equivalent of rolling the dice. And so it's just like, oh crap, I just made the decision. So is it like prior, and it's also obviously you're making a decision based on all the experiences that your conscious mind and your subconscious mind is able to process. But if you have that, going back to what we said last week, if you have that intuition, or you've worked on that intuition, you can listen to what your body's actually telling you, and then make the decision. And so you have more of a chance of being the hero than you have of being the coward, if you're able to incorporate the all of the incorporate listening to your body, so that you're listening to intuition as well as being able to consciously process a decision. But it's about developing that awareness. It keeps coming back to that. You just got to develop that awareness so that you end up making that hero's choice.
Oh man, love it. It's so many opportunities, I think, to start that. And it's literally like I'm sat down right now. I can choose to sit in a way that's going to really fuck me up in a few hours time. I can really like slouch, and I can feel horrible about myself. I can just like be like, I'm going to be here. I'm going to try and be here. And like, I can be here for 1 minute. I can be here for 2 minutes. I can try and be here for a bit longer. Over time, that's going to compound. You know what I mean? That's going to compound. I'm going to affirm that sitting like this makes me feel good. Sitting like this makes me feel like shit. You know what I mean? So like little things like that. Like it doesn't need to be anything grand and
Exactly.
special. You know what I mean? Like I think this is where like paralysis by analysis definitely comes in, and where we can take confidence in the small things and then make those into a really grand like being. You know what I mean? We don't need to wait for the massive opportunity in life. You almost need to just train for it constantly, and then just stay in that state of readiness. And then when you're presented with it, it won't kind of present itself as like that target that you see is really far away. It won't be a daunting task. It'll be right there in front of your face, and you can just smash it anytime you want. You know what I mean? That's the long-term implication of doing these reps and being aware of these reps and seeing the opportunity in all of these little things, is that, okay, like something is a daunting task in front of you, and you feel unsure, and you feel like you're shaking, and you feel like everything is pointing towards, use the word anxiety, use the word fear, use the word unassuredness, any of those things. But really, if you kind of build up a head of steam through the other aspects of your life, and you know that they're going the right way, they're going the good way, there is a certain level of, I'll be okay, I'll be able to figure this shit out. And I think you got to use that. You got to play off of that to make it feel like, okay, no matter what happens in my life, I could make the wrong business decision. I could trust the wrong person. You know what I mean? And it could sting me, but really, that's another opportunity in disguise. Like who knows that that's supposed to be the end all and be all. Like, yeah, maybe you might have built it up to be a big thing in your life, but through that you could be growing in so many different ways. But I think people don't ever get to a place where they trust their intuition or see themselves in the moment enough to validate themselves to make that decision to then rise or fall. Like you've got to do one or the other, because both are rise at the end of the day. Both can be seen that way. So just like you said, roll the dice and back yourself, because I can say this, the people that I know that have had the hardest lives, they didn't envision as a child their life would be that way. I don't think they ever did, if I can speak to that. But as a result of that hard ass life, they are absolutely spectacular human beings. And that is, if there's an opportunity in your front of you, that's a hard opportunity, fucking great. Like you said, like you need to be in that place where there's fear, because that's what's going to help you rise the most. But it's just reframing it, like you said, in your mind, to be like, this is not a bad thing. I feel anxious, good. I feel scared, good. It's that Jacko Willink. Have you seen his YouTube
Willink,
video?
Yeah, exactly. Man.
Yeah,
good.
Have you seen that?
Get
one?
up, dust off, reload, recalibrate, re-engage. Go out on the attack.
Yeah, he's such an American. But you know what? He's so right. He's so right.
Yeah,
like,
man.
There's no. I was watching some Sky Sports clips on boxing before we came on here, and you watch somebody kind of come back from getting their ass handed to them in a couple of rounds, and it's like you see it. You visibly see that person taking a beating and being like, okay, this is happening, something. I'm going to counter that. Next time you throw that counter, next time you throw that right hand, I'm going to counter you so hard, you're going to know about it. And then that's it. They're seeing the opportunity in that right hand that was pummeling them a round ago. Now they're like, okay, throw it again, pow, right over the top. It's like, oh shit, like I used it. I used that thing. You know what I mean? And that's it. Just got to use it. Like you got to use that in whatever it is in your life. And you see these champions kind of come from nothing. And literally on the brink of like actual loss, you're seeing it in front of your eyes, and then just turning that into like the absolute win.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's a beautiful, another microcosm that you just described. There is boxer getting punched in the face. He uses that same punch to go out and win. You know, that's like life is knocking you down, but you use that knockdown and let it drive you forward. That's I like that, man. That's a good way.
I've got it on my wall. Yeah, I've got it on my wall over here. I've got this Rocky poster, which is like it's the speech he gives his son. I think it's in Rocky 5. I think.
Oh yeah, bro! Don't tell me about that speech, man. I'll reel that off for you right now.
Yeah, man.
I know it inside out.
It's such a powerful speech. And do you know what? I didn't even. This is like an Instagram purchase at like 4 a.m. I think I remember getting up and like being in the bathroom, just like scrolling, my eyes closed, and be like, I like that. I want that in my life. My intuition is like, add to basket. Give him the money. Just come to me. Like, I need that reminder.
That's amazing.
Yeah, bro. It's up here. It's so sick. It's so sick. Like you made that connection with that, and I see it, man. 100%. You know the speech I'm talking about. People ain't heard the speech. I think you should do your best to really offer them, bro.
Oh, bro! They'll get like the next 2 minutes. I'm gonna go Rocky.
Let's go, bro. Let's go. Let's take it there.
we're gonna get my voice box warmed up, get my slant of my face warmed up a little bit. Yeah, you just get it out there. You ain't gonna believe it. You used to fit right here. I hold you up instead of your mother. Dude, I'm not joking. I would do the whole thing.
I didn't expect you to go that far back. Keep going, please. I'm not even here. Just go, bro.
Honestly, man, I'm doing the whole thing.
Ain't no sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are. It will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it.
It's epic. That's epic. That is so good. I'm literally following your words on my wall. It's so good.
That's hilarious, man.
I'm gonna put a picture up of this on my Instagram afterwards and just be like, we'll tag it and just be like, yep, he nailed it. He nailed it. Right down to the accent was freaking good, man. That was pretty scary. I wasn't expecting you to say it in the whole sliced alone.
Yeah, you gotta do it. You gotta go full tilt, man. Yeah, we'll have a special guest next week. We'll do Al Pacino any given Sunday.
Oh, I love it. 6 inches in front of your face.
In front of your face. You gotta look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes.
So good, man. So good. Just goosebumps everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take that one right from the beginning as well. Like,
Yeah, man.
Just the whole, I don't know what to say, really.
And then
Yeah,
just
man.
from there.
Ah, so special. Give me
Yeah,
goosebumps, man.
Yeah, exactly. They got some epic speeches. It's crazy. I don't know why. There's like 6 or 7 speeches from movies I just know off the top of my head, and like not easy ones as well. That's like a 4-minute speech. That Rocky one's another 2-minute one. There's the Al Pacino Scent of Woman one where he goes off on one for 4 minutes. The end of that movie.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
There's the one that gets me is not. It's not a long one. It's the one from Gladiator at the start.
Oh yeah.
It's like what is
strength
it? Like, yeah, if you can feel the sun on your back and the wind in your whatever, you're already dead. And it's just like, oh shit,
exactly.
it's time now.
Exactly. Don't worry, you're already dead.
Yeah, man.
I think of that
epic,
every now and then. It's it's such a like. There's so many sick lines in that movie.
Yeah,
just
man.
It's 2 and a bit hours, and then every 10 minutes, like that's a sick line. That's a sick line. That's a sick line. It's like that bit, the whole strength and honor. Just are you not entertained? And
man.
Speech as well.
Oh, so powerful, man.
Yeah,
powerful. Man. And he's like I remember reading about like virtues and the virtues that they would live by, and like reading about it like arbitrarily. And then I bought this book. What was it called? Meditations by Seneca, and just like the way they kind of they went about their lives. And I remember listening to the first kind of 5 minutes of the movie, and they talk about Caesar talks about Maximus, and he's like, you display all the virtues that I want in a man. I'm like, oh shit, like these people like actually live this stuff, right? So cool. Man. So cool. Then you got the son who just displays none of them, and he tells him that, and it's like, oof, that's the equivalent of like just someone dissing you so hard. Like you just there's no virtues to your life, man. You just don't live by these values. And I was like, wow.
It's so it's like your failures as a person, my failures as a father.
Yeah.
Man.
I got like the greatest one for you. Go on.
Oh, and the other one was when Maximus, he's like, I want you to be the new emperor of Rome, and Maximus like, with all my heart, no. And he goes, this is why, Maximus, it must be you. And I was like, damn, man, that's got me so hard. It's like he's so perfect, and he won't do it, and that's exactly why he's perfect for it.
Exactly.
And I'm like, this motherfucker right there.
Epic, man, epic. And he's like, what's the one where he's about to back to that battle one, and he's like, the choices you make echo in eternity, and you're just like, ooh, too hard.
I'm shivering. I'm gonna be in battle with you right now, man.
Like, where's my horse? Give me my horse. I gotta go. Maximus needs me.
Yeah. Oh crap! Wait, it's not 2,000 years ago.
Yeah. So good, man.
Epic,
so good.
But yeah, that movie is just, movies don't get made that way. Like that first 20 minutes of that movie, or like even the first 10, the way it sets it up is just
heavy.
shown. It's so heavy. It's so good. It's just you get the dynamics of the relationship between Marcus Aurelius and Maximus and Joaquin's character. What's his name?
His name is
anyway, but he's I can't believe I'm forgetting.
I know, same.
But yeah, you get it, you see it, you feel it, and it's not told to you. It's not like, I don't like you because you're a prick. It's just the way Maximus, like Russell Crowe, just like bows to him in this kind of apprehensive kind of way. It's just so beautiful. And it's just that's the art of storytelling basically in the movie.
Too right, man. Yeah, the subtext is so strong. You can't it's palpable, right? You cannot feel that this guy is good to his core, and you cannot feel that the Joaquin Phoenix in that movie is just rotten, and everything. You see how his life kind of falls apart around him. That he can't control the Senate, and then like the people are kind of going one way, and they all love Maximus, and it's like, because that's how it's supposed to be. Like this is what happens when that's misalignment to the tits, right? Like you can see it plain as day. Like everything goes wrong for this guy. Everything goes wrong. It's like, no, you're not supposed to be this way. Like it's I don't know if that ever worked out. Did that ever work out? Did that ever actually work out? Like somebody being just that evil a human, and then it being like, yeah, we can just live this way forever and ever and ever. Like people stop to think, like, you know what I mean? Like think about it. Like I'm sure it goes right for a little bit of time, but then you're just you're gonna get shanked, man. Because
Yeah.
you can't be that guy. Like,
Well, that's
people
it.
just not
You're like,
happy with that.
exactly. It's like every time somebody's tried to like produce some sort of totalitarian state, and it's always fallen down basically throughout history, throughout civilization. Or especially when it comes to like oh man, I'm going to say it is like the communist states, and then just people like nowadays for some reason are thinking it's a great idea. It's like, look, there's a reason why every time we've tried it, it's caused millions of unnecessary deaths, and it's always failed. And so let's not go down that route again. But yeah, I mean, and I want to go like for Gladiator again. The last bit is just basically when he ends up at the end, when he dies, it's just there's that simultaneous. I'm so happy for him, but I'm also so fucking sad that he's died because like he's fulfilled his mission. Essentially, he's gonna see his family in the afterlife. It's like, no, that's what he believes is gonna happen. So he's happy with that, but at the same time, you're like, this dude's such a goddamn G. You just don't want him to die.
Man. Oh, I'm getting the vibe, the goosebumps that hit me hard right now. When he's like, when he's seen the flashback of his wife and she's in the field with the sun, and it's just like the songs playing and stuff, and it's like now we are free. That tune,
yeah, it's such a tune.
Heavy, man, so heavy. So yeah, man, go chill now because you did your bits.
Yeah, man,
it's so good, man. So good.
It's legit, man. All right, like that's the movie tangent. The
crazy review segment.
Yeah. There were a couple of things that you said earlier which I thought were pretty useful to delve into, and it was about willpower and about confidence as well, because the idea of just like trying to build the confidence or like just having the confidence to be okay with the decision that you make in the face of you being told that it's wrong. And then there's also because you talked about willpower as well, it's like just having the willpower to make a decision. And then so the interesting thing about willpower is that as far as we know, it's like it's a finite thing. So if you're always relying on willpower, you're going to get to a point where you just can't make a decision, and then you cave in, because you tried too hard to rely on that muscle that isn't well developed. And it's a finite power. And then the best way to overcome it is to create the environment for yourself where you don't even have to use willpower. So let's put that into practical circumstances. Like, okay, somebody is overweight and they need to start losing weight, and they need to start making better nutritional choices, right? So in your house, in your pantry, you're going to have like cookies and biscuits and crisps and foods that are really easy to consume a lot of without thinking about it. And 10 minutes later, you've just downed like 1,000 calories and you didn't even notice. And so your environment is right now, in your environment, you're having to rely on willpower. Then if you're going to make that call to make the change, then if you clean out that pantry and instead you've got like fruits and vegetables and whatever, or you just don't have that easy to consume, easy to indulge on stuff in your house, then lo and behold, you don't even have to make the decision, right? So you don't have to rely on willpower, and your environment is set up so that you are automatically making better choices. And so that extends out to everything else, whether it's becoming more, doing more physical activity, developing mental toughness. So that can be something as simple as, by your bedside having a journal to write in. So you've got that cue to do it every single time. And it's not a decision, it's just there. And then being physical, the whole little thing of, all right, if I don't have it in my habit to wake up in the morning right now to go to the gym, if that's the time of day you're choosing to do it, then the cliche of just have your training gear ready in the morning, that's what you see to put on, and then put it on, and then gradually take the step out your door, and then gradually you're making those micro decisions, and which are built off of the environment you've created for yourself, which is I've already got everything around me that I need to do. I just need to only need to make one decision. I don't have to make a million decisions. And so you're not relying on willpower, you've created the environment. And so again, then it comes to relationships as well. It's have the people around you that build you up rather than tear you down or make you feel bad, or just do those little things that you're not in alignment with. And then so with willpower, it's like try not to rely on it. It's not a weakness if you don't have willpower. Let's put it that way. It's you don't have, again, it's like you don't have the reps in it, but you need to set up life so that it's not something you have to rely on. You have to create the environment for your better decisions. And so things become automatic. And at the end of the day, the less decisions your brain has to make, the happier it is, because it can conserve energy. Most of the decisions that you think you're making are just habit. So because the brain likes to work in patterns, otherwise it's just way too energy consuming to be making a live decision about everything that you do. So that's the thing about willpower, which is important to note, is like, stop relying on it. Stop thinking that you're weak and pathetic if you don't make it happen. With willpower, you have to have the strategy to create the environment around you to succeed.
Too right, man. Too right. It's powerful what you just said, man, because my mind's taken it to what Jordan Shallow says about ability, stability, and strength, in the sense that he says that you have to almost create the environment for the strength to take place. And that's the that's kind of what I can take from his study so far, is that if I don't have an environment which is mobile, then I can't make it stable, and I can't be strong from that stable place. And what that, in my mind, how that relates to what you're talking about, is that if I've not created an environment in my home which points in the direction of strength, points in the direction of seeing opportunity. When I open that drawer and there's no cookies in there, but there's a broccoli looking at me, I'm like, oh shit, there's some opportunity there. There's some opportunity I can go and take a hold of right now. I can go and crack the fridge open and make some eggs and chuck some broccoli in there and chuck some tomatoes on the side. Like, that's me aligning myself. And then at the end of the day, like you said, I haven't got to rely on that finite resource of strength. Like we know it best from jiu-jitsu, like strength runs out and then you're just done, right? But you've got to rely on the technique, and the technique of life in this setting is for you to know the steps you need to do and take place, you need to carry out each day to win that technique, to win that fight each day. You know what I mean? Like that kind of that match or that jiu-jitsu tournament is only going to be won by you expressing some strength, because I think that's going to have to happen sometimes, but not all the time, like you said. But the analogy that I use with it being like you having to create the environment, and then that environment be a technique almost, and that technique is, did I follow through on having the right foods in the house? Did I follow through on, like you said, laying out your clothes for the gym in the morning, for your run in the morning? Your shoes are right by your bed. You got to wake up and those shoes are going on. You're going out the door. That's there's no failure in that. You know what I mean? There's no way you can look back on that day and be like, I didn't do everything I could have done today. And it's gonna, again, create that head of steam where slowly but surely you're gonna be making that habit every single day, because you'll see yourself feeling better, doing better. And it'll all be because of those small decisions adding up to equaling that big technique that sets up the submission, or sets up that the fact that you've owned your day. You know what I mean? That's kind of the way it goes. And it's literally that simple, like the tiny things that go to support the big goal, the big obstacle. It doesn't need to be a big obstacle, it just needs to be broken down into the little subsections, like you said, and understanding the role they all play and seeing how your mind reacts to them once they're in front of you, I think is so powerful. And I think you can have that act as like a little boost in the moment. You know what I mean? You're doing the first step right. You're setting it up. You say all of a sudden you see the next opportunity. Cool, I can put something else there to remind myself, and then before you know it, it just takes care of itself. Whereas the other way, you're creating this unstable environment, and you're just trying to go from it constantly. You're trying to go from it. You're trying to become strong from it. You're trying to be strong from it, and then you're left with like, why am I not strong? Why am I not seeing the gains I want to see? And I've been slogging away at the gym for years and years and years. I've been paying my membership. I've been showing up. Well, really, it's because you've not fully analyzed or fully understood the fact that the rest of the things that make up your life, your being, they're just not aligned. They're not aligned. They're not supporting you in this way. And like you said, you're just constantly running at this with nothing but willpower. And like you said, it's not an infinite resource. You have to have the supporting factors around you.
100%, man. That's some big stuff, and I like where you took it with the kind of analogies and like the metaphors there as well, because it just goes to show, it's applicable to everything. Yeah, that was nicely put. That was definitely nicely put. And then yeah, go.
It reminds me, like, you're talking about Nick Daniels' post, right? He was saying that what he posted recently. What was the? It was
basically action drives confidence. Action breeds confidence.
And you said that you had a chat with your flatmate, right, about like how that pictured up in your lives.
Yeah, it was interesting. So actually, yeah, like I commented on Nick's status as well, Nick's Insta post, because he did that he posted it this morning, and I was like, man, we were literally talking about this 2 days ago, like the idea of confidence, and I think, oh crap, I think that's something that's important for people to understand in general. Basically, in a way, confidence is the last thing that you really need to worry about, because it comes from being competent in something, and how do you become competent at something is just by fucking starting and doing it, right? So there's and then part of that conversation that we were having, so yeah, Nick posted it this morning, and we were talking about it a couple of days ago, and it was a very good conversation. Like, my house, like, I'm just lucky to live with housemates that I do, and I can have the kind of conversations I do with them, because it's challenging, so it makes you think, and it makes you realize like a few things, and people will ask you good questions, and you can riff off each other, and you've just basically been able to articulate something that you've had it within you. You just never knew you needed to speak about it, right? And so this was really interesting, because in the context of what we do as well, and in the context of health and fitness, lack of confidence brings people down all the time, because in the most obvious way as well. It's not like, if somebody lacks confidence in an office job or something, or in a team environment, like, somebody could kind of get away with not being confident because there's other people who can, maybe take the heat off of them, and it can just take a little bit longer to get found out. But if you're not confident in that health and fitness environment, the perception of confidence, basically, if you don't feel confident, then it's just holding you back from you achieving your health and fitness goal, whether it's being stronger, or whether it's losing weight, or moving better, feeling good in your body. But it's the thing that stops people from making the decision to actually go and do something about it. So let's like an example is when people might have said to you before, it's one of the most common answers for not taking on personal training, which is strange, which is, no, I don't feel like I'm fit enough yet. When I get a bit fitter, I'll take on some training, right? Have you heard that before?
Yep, I have.
Yeah, and it's so common, and it's just like, no, that's not what it is about. You actually want to start with training so that you build the highest level of competence early on. Otherwise, don't screw yourself up doing it all by yourself, and don't take too long, and don't take ages trying to figure out the solution when we can hand you the solution. It's just about you executing it. Do you want to do this and get into good shape in 3 months' time, or do you want to do this and mess around with it and take 4, 5, 6 years trying to figure it out and never really getting there, and then just kind of feeling like you've done everything and you failed, right? So there's an interesting thing about fake it till you make it, is what we were talking about as well. And like, is it virtue? Does it have its virtue? Does it have its place, or is it a dangerous concept? And so where we took that conversation was, if somebody is in the context of health and fitness, let's say they want to lose some weight, or they want to just basically get into better shape. and you don't want to set foot into the gym because you don't feel confident. So it's almost like it's two different ways of looking at it, but it's the same. The solution is the same. I was thinking like, okay, this is where fake it till you make it can be helpful, because you just end up kind of building up some level of false confidence so you can step into the arena that is actually going to build the competence, which will build your confidence up naturally, right? And in alignment as well, so you're not faking it the whole time. So you need to build up a certain level of confidence, which you're kind of faking. You're basically faking it, and so you can set foot and then actually do the thing that is going to build you true confidence. And then my housemate Matt came at it from the other angle. He goes, I'm basically saying the same thing, but it's from a different point of view, which is, no, you just need to get real that you suck at something right now and just go and correct it. So it's like, instead of faking confidence, accept that it's a place, it's not something that you excel at. You're going to suck at it, and you just have to accept that, be real with yourself, and then go and step into the arena where you're going to build confidence, build competence, which will help you develop confidence. And then ultimately the conclusion is don't even worry about confidence, because that will come by getting good at the thing that you want to get good at. And and Nick's point is, it's going to require some hard work. Don't be a snowflake and take on some hard work. And because that's how he says it. He just puts it out there and says it with full force. And you got to put in the hard work to get where you want to be, and that will breed confidence, because mastery is where confidence comes from. And so for people, it's like stop judging yourself so much that you're like, I'm not confident enough to do this thing. It's like, yeah, you're not, and that's completely fine, because you have to just accept where you are, accept that it ain't the place that you want to be, accept that you don't have the competence, but you can always build that competence by just stepping into the arena and just working at it and making it happen. So those were like some of the like interesting ideas that ended up coming out about confidence, and just how you build it rather than continuously fake it. You have to build it. And because continuously faking it is just not living in alignment, basically. You're just because all you're doing is faking it, you're not actually building the competence to develop that confidence. And so there's that big disconnect every time. And then instead you're just putting yourself under pressure and just like looking around and be like, oh, I'm pretending that I'm confident to all these people, but wait till they see the real. I don't want them to see the real side. I don't have that confidence. Whereas you'll also be somebody who, because you're working on building competence, I think it's also something that happens, which if you don't know something, or if you're not in that domain and you're not as skilled about it, you'll be more humble about it as well. You'll be like, oh, actually, I don't actually know that. And that's showing true confidence in yourself as well, which is, I've built up a certain level of confidence in this thing, and I'm confident in the current knowledge that I have. And then something comes along and kind of throws that off, and you're like, oh, wait, actually, I don't know as much as I thought I did. And you're okay with that, because it's another opportunity to build more competence and learn something and build even more confidence from that. So essentially, yeah, don't even worry about confidence. Worry about being competent, and then confidence will come.
Big. And I think this is something that TJ talks about a lot, is that he will, the way he phrases it is that he's happy to concede. He's happy to concede. And it's like, people think confidence is this show, this like peacocking show, but it's not. It's like, and he says this to me all the time, he's like, I will happily concede and say that I don't know something, because in doing that, he's almost laying himself bare, saying that this is what I am. And like you said, that's actual confidence. Like, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with not being on your level with this. I don't care, because it makes me feel no lesser knowing that you know something that I don't, but it makes me feel greater. And again, he sees the opportunity in this, is that I will concede. It makes me feel good that I'm happily and open and honest with myself and honest with yourself to say that I don't know. I don't know. I'm fine with not knowing. And that a lot of people have very, very, very anxious thoughts about. And I would have in the past. To me, it was like, I have to know, I have to kind of be that perfect kind of thing. And then that kind of comes from a few different places. But I think the things in life that I've gone at with a certain level of like just not giving a fuck. Like I'm completely okay with being the shittest person in the room at this, and kind of falling on my ass and failing and falling on my ass and failing. Those are the ones that you develop the affinity for the most. Like just it's who is it? Paul Check. He says like do the thing to have the power. It's such a simple phrase, but it's like it makes so much sense. Like just do the thing and you'll have the power. Like don't worry about the outcome, don't worry about the way you'll be seen, or all these things are just like they're almost like the analogy we used with the last conversation was create an environment of stability. But sometimes you can almost create an environment of instability. And that instability is like second guessing yourself and like stuttering to start and overthinking. It seems like the right thing to do, but sometimes you need to just kind of put yourself in a bad situation and then use that to be the rep that you need to get yourself out of that situation. I mean, not all the time, but again, like you touched on it as well, is like kind of if you know really where you want to go, you know you have a clearish vision, because that vision will change, like we've talked about a lot. You're going to be able to just fail your way forward, and that, I mean, we've covered that in the previous podcast as well, right? Like, but you have to just start. You just have to start. You have to start making those mistakes. And I think back to TJ, like doing it in a way that is completely without judgment, like self-judgment. He doesn't need to be this topic, this finished article in his own eyes yet, because he knows he's going to go that way. And to him, it's like anything above where I am now is a massive leap forward. And I always say, we always laugh about this. Like he say to me, "You give me a nugget, and I'll turn it into a muck chicken sandwich." That's his line, right? That's literally his line. Like, you give me a nugget, you give me an inch, and I'll make it a mile. Like, because, and that feeds back to him.
That's the most healthy thing he could think of. He's like, "Come on, man! I knew you can do better. To give me a nugget, I'll shit out a piece of gold."
Mate, that kid, he can do it. If there's anyone who can do it, TJ can do it. Yeah, man. He's I think that comes from a place where he's not worried at all, and this is absolute confidence that where he is right now is where he's ever going to end up. And that's why, like, if you have that kind of, I'll figure it out, I'll make it work. If you don't give me, I'll go to the next guy. I'll get it from him. If you don't give me again, I'll go to the next guy. And either way, like, he's gonna get what he wants. But it's the fact that he's willing to put himself out there, seem like the dumbest person in the room, not have an ego about it, not need to feel a certain way that you know something that he doesn't. It's such a power. It's such a superpower. It's such a in disguise superpower. Such a low key, in some people's eyes, superpower. But it's super necessary. There we go. Just dropping it again. Yeah, man. It's and then you see it with people that don't have that level of assuredness when they're kind of getting into things. Is there'll just be a lot of stuttering, a lot of starting, stopping. And I think that's a really, like, it's a tough place to be, because you've got a lot of things in your life that you think might be kind of angling you in certain decision, and you necessarily think that you don't have the tools to make the decision, but really you do. You just need to, like, I've said it in the past as well, like, you don't make the right decision, but you make the decision right. And that's the way, man.
Yeah, exactly, man. Pay attention and be awake to your body, to every cue that you can try and get your fingers on, every cue you can try and figure out. And again, that's where intuition plays its role as well. Like, generally speaking, we're much happier with the decision in the long term for a big decision, if we've made it relying on more intuition, and if we relied on making a conscious decision and trying to logically figure out whether this is right or wrong, it's like it has its place. But if that's going to be the way you make your final decision, you're generally less happy with the decision you made in the long term. So try and pay
That's
attention
really
to all these.
interesting.
It's basically
That's
the
really
ones I have.
interesting.
Yeah, man, it's fascinating because it's it's like, yeah, like your phone's friggin' listening to you or something all the time, right? So I was like, we talked about intuition in the last podcast, and I've been thinking about it, and I've probably like been making notes. Like each time I read something in the book, I'll put it down, and then I'll just make notes on, like, recall basically, and try and make notes on what I just read, just to see what my brain spits out, see if it understands what's just happened. And then, lo and behold, there's a video that shows up on my YouTube about Tim Ferriss talking about intuition. I was like, hey, man, what's going on here? And I ain't even searched it on anywhere. Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, okay, fine. I mean, obviously they're listening. They know I'm interested in this thing. And and he was talking about, he spent weeks. Essentially, he was mulling over a decision of whether he should, I think it was something about hiring a publisher. And he's like, whether he should hire this particular individual or publishing group or whatever it was. And he goes, I spent ages mulling over the decision, and I just couldn't arrive at it. And then my girlfriend at the time just said to me, do you trust this person? And he went, oh yeah, no, I don't. And he's like, all right, fine, there's your answer. And he was like, I was just making this freaking checklist that I'm trying to base a decision off of, and then when I actually asked my gut, it told me the answer, and it was a good decision because I don't regret it. And that's what it's about, is stop clouding yourself all the time with trying to think about it consciously when it's a big decision, and just go with what your gut is telling you and listen to your heart, because they're honest. They're honest about you, and that's what you need to. So we need to rely on.
It's deep, man. Some powerful shit.
Yeah,
love it, man.
Shit. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, that's really interesting, man. Really, really interesting. I can think of a few people who would benefit a lot from just trusting that intuition.
Mm-hmm. Everybody would. Is like, I mean, that's why when I made the little clip so that we posted it on Facebook and Insta, was like, if only we had access to our intuition more often, right? And the thing is like, yeah, we can, from simple perspective of just in terms of tuning in, is getting the basics right, which we're always talking about. And in terms of health, is like, if you're more active, you're fitter, you're healthier, you're more in tune with your body. And your body is the one that's communicating with the brain, telling it what's an intuitive decision, what's a good decision, and what's not. And then nutrition, and then getting your sleep, and then managing your stresses. Is like, it's never about getting rid of stress, because we need it. It helps us adapt to life. But we're in an environment where it gets too much, and it becomes chronic. And you get a lot of low-grade stress going on, and peaks often. And then we don't need any help getting stress. We do need help to figure out how to de-stress. And so you've got to learn how to do those kinds of things. And then so simple, like, relaxation practices, like for example, breathing, getting in tune with your breathing and using that. And that's number one. That's a way of you tuning into your own intuition, like, what's it doing, what's it saying. And it's like basically breathing, and like the diaphragm muscle, for anybody who doesn't know, is basically the dome shaped muscle that kind of just sits at the at the bottom of the ribs, and is like it's just basically, it's like double, like a couple of domes sit there, and they control your breathing when you do it properly. And being able to control the diaphragm is just basically a direct link to controlling your brain. And there's no other muscle that has an influence on an organ like that, in a direct sense. So you can literally influence how you're feeling by getting your breathing right. And when you start getting your breathing right, yeah, and you start getting your breathing right, and you start to tune into that, you start to regulate it. You change, you physically and literally changing how your brain is functioning. So you are more able to be in a space where you can behave more reasonably, act more reasonably, just by tuning into your breathing and getting that regulating and bringing it down into, if you're in a stress state, bringing it back down into a de-stress state. So there's a lot of power in learning how to do those things, so you can actually be more aware of your intuitive senses.
That's really interesting, man. Really interesting. I think a lot of people would benefit from understanding that more. It's something that I'm studying right now quite a lot with Nick Daniel, funnily enough, and then Jordan Shallow touches on it a lot, and then he references people like Pat Davidson and Zach Couples and a few of these people. We were studying breathing for the last 2 weeks on Nick's mentorship.
Nice.
It's wild, man. It's absolutely wild when you're talking about kind of the autonomic nervous system and how breathing can control that, right? It's super interesting. Super interesting.
Yeah.
And the amount of people, like, because he was talking about how there's two kind of pathways, right? Like you can use the primary or secondary muscles of breathing, and the implications of overusing secondary pathway in terms of how sympathetic dominance kind of stays into the body, and that, I think it's mad how it ties into your physiology and how like your body is shaped and how it affects joint movements, how it affects your ability to rotate certain joints, your ability to relax and sleep and recover from workouts, and even actually have an effective muscle growth based workout can all be leveraged upon whether you can inhale and exhale correctly. It's absolutely bonkers. But then you think about it, you think, well, if we stop breathing, it's curtains. So it probably is more important than just, you know what I mean? Like it probably has more depth in it, but you just don't think about it, do you? We just never think about it. It's so obvious. It's the only thing that we are really required right now to do constantly. You know what I mean? And how many people will ever actually take the time to stop and just breathe? It's like it's crazy, man. It's crazy, yeah.
Man, you're putting in like 20 to 25,000 reps of breathing in a day. So if you're talking about, putting the reps in, you want to make sure those freaking reps are well done.
Too right, man. Too right.
And that's the crazy thing with, I'm just going to put that banner up, man, because we're talking about breathing.
Get it, bro.
So it's like putting the reps into getting it done right. And it sounds like a ludicrous suggestion that you don't breathe right, but it's just what our environment and the way we live now has done to us. We're a lot less efficient at a lot of things that we are naturally supposed to be pretty good at. And breathing is one of them. So there's the implications of breathing more through your mouth than you breathing through your nose. There's which has a direct impact on whether you activate your diaphragm more effectively for breathing. And again, for anybody who isn't aware of it, the diaphragm is your primary breathing muscle. And if you're using it correctly, it will help support your spine as well. So it's involved. It's got a complicated job, basically. And the thing that it's doing is essentially helping you breathe right. So you're taking in adequate amounts of, using your lungs properly, basically, to take in adequate amounts of air and efficient amounts of air as well. And then it's supporting and because of the way that you breathe through that area, it's supporting your spine. So when you're supporting your spine, that means, you're not going to trash your spine if you're making any kinds of movements, especially when it comes to lifting weights. And so it has that stabilizing capacity, and it's basically when that functions properly, then what we commonly call the core, the midsection of the body, is transferring forces between the limbs more efficiently. So from like shoulder to hip. And then when that happens, your hips and your shoulders function better. And if that's the case, then you're a lot more efficient. And then you talk about mobility, stability, strength. They're a diamond. They're a triangle rather, that feed off of each other. So they're all the strength is there because your breathing is on point. Then your fitness is better because your breathing is on point. Your state of mind is better because your breathing is on point. Your and then by extension, your productivity is going to be better because your breathing is on point. Because if you're in a clearer state of mind, if you can breathe, then you're going to be better at making decisions. They're not coming from an irrational place; they're coming from a place of rationality as much as you can be, as reasonable as possible. Breathing is controlling your emotional state as well. So it's you're able to control whether you're in a stressed position and whether you are in a resting position, a resting situation rather. So you can change your breathing to put you into a more stressed state if you wanted to. But like I say, in day-to-day life, most people don't need that. What they need is to learn how to put themselves into a relaxed state, a de-stressed state. And the way you do that is by, again, controlling your breathing, getting your breathing on point. And the crazy thing is every single aspect is kind of gets dysregulated, becomes inefficient because we'll be mouth breathing instead of nasal breathing, number one. So pay attention to how you're breathing. If it's in through the mouth and out through the mouth, then we've got problems going on. You're not going to be as efficient, and especially as you possibly can be. And there's other implications to not breathing properly through the nose as well. And then you're not as strong as you could be. You're not as mentally calm as you could be, and therefore, by extension, you're not going to make as good decisions as you possibly could be. So those secondary muscles of breathing that you're talking about using, they end up getting overused, and it makes us a lot less efficient at creating stability in our spine. And we overuse those muscles. Our postures change. We're in crappier postures. And that's another thing as well, because we're hunched forward and flexed forward a lot of the time. We're reducing the capacity of the diaphragm to work in a healthy way. And so we're reducing our ability to take a good breath in. And how much more shall I say? Basically, the implications of breathing well it just goes so far. It goes so far. So it's something you want to correct, something you want to learn how to do fundamentally well, and then build your. So that's your foundations. You build your house off of that. If you don't get that right, then you don't have stability and you don't have mobility, and you make shaky strength. It's like basically building a house when the cement hasn't dried, and you just you're on sand instead.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, you're just outsourcing it to a secondary party that isn't as competent. That's your foundation. That's your foundation that can really, really look after you, like you said, in so many ways. And it's baffling that it's not more understood, especially at this time right now with everything respiratory going on with COVID-19 and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's actually something that we're focusing on with our own training. TJ and I teaching it to clients, being in that kind of state where we're just bringing awareness to people, right? That's such a massive thing, and I think people's like you said, their perception of it is like, what do you mean? Breathing? No, I'm breathing. I've always breathed. Like I don't need to think about that. But really, it's the only thing you do need to think about, because it's the prerequisite to all of the other things. Like if you want to do your, I'm very much all or nothing, right? So like when I learned about Kelly Starrett, I did every joint in my body, right? I just kind of went around and just kind of like you spoke about this, right?
Me and you both, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I've still got like cricket balls that I've just been places that cricket balls shouldn't be, right? And but at the same time, if somebody had talked about this, it's like, oh shit, like that's the prerequisite to Kelly Starrett. So it's like if I can get this shit on point, obviously you can take that with a pinch of salt, but yeah, it's such a fundamental piece to our body that so few people understand.
Mm.
And I think it's integral because, like, for instance, Nick and I were talking about this, and he was saying about how he used to brace for a big squat, and it was like take
Mm.
a massive belly breath in, and you think, okay, what have I actually just done? I've destabilized the fuck out of myself. So let me
Mm.
go pick up 200 kilos. Like, no, it's not going to work. It's not going to go well. You know what I mean? It's really not going to go well. Whereas,
Mm.
like, now you think about kind of the equivalent, and you would nasal breathe, and you're done. Like, that's
Mm.
it. Like, that's literally all you need. Like, it's crazy the differences. And like you said, like outsourcing it to your strength is, like Shallows will say, like, you're trying to find savior in your structure, and that's not what you need. You kind of find it in your function. And like, when we
Mm.
fully understand the function of your diaphragm, fully understand the function of your breathing, you can see that, okay, well, I can take the stress off of my structure and put it in the appropriate hands and the safe hands of my function in this aspect. And it's all good, and everything's good in the hood. You know what I mean? Like, you're not you're not mixing roles. Everybody kind of knows their role, and you're not kind of looking to the wrong guys for the answers. Where you just kind of say, okay, right, well, you take care of this, and
Yeah.
over here you guys can just crack on with what you need to do, because you're fully supported. And the change has been mad. Like I say, it's my own training. I wasn't aware of breathing up until about 6 weeks ago. Nick kind of taught me about it a little bit,
Okay.
and then I kind of got into it, and he introduced me to a technique called bear breathing. I don't know if you've heard about bear breathing.
No, tell me about that.
It's like closing off of the infrasternal angle, having
Mm-hmm.
a two flared ribcage position, basically meaning that I'm breathing through my lower ribs too much in an anterior position. I'm kind of I'm arching my spine and breathing
Mm-hmm.
out of my front, right? So bear breathing will kind of teach me to close off the front of my rib cage
Okay. Yeah.
and breathe more circumferentially, more out of the
Yeah.
sides and in the back.
So you
And
just get that alignment again between the ribs and the pelvis, basically.
that's
Yeah.
it. That's it. Like, once the rib cage kind of settles down, the pelvis can settle underneath it, and you find that you naturally float into a posterior pelvic tilt. And
Mm.
like, that's not actually a posterior tilt. It's like, that's your anatomical neutral. Like, that's
Yep.
like, if you're hanging like a plum, like that's kind of where you're going to fall.
Mm.
And then performing movements from there, whether it be a shoulder press, whether it be a walking lunge, whether it be a glute ham raise, anything, right? Like, I am just like efficient at getting direct line and a direct line to the muscle. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you wanna be a bodybuilder and you wanna grow your back. Okay, well, how are you breathing? So the last
Yep.
thing people think that you're going to ask them is, oh, well, we're not going to talk about length and range and short and range and like all this shit. It's like, no, let's move the
Yeah.
big rocks first. Like, as
It's
Jordan
like, you know,
Shallow says that a lot of the podcast. Yeah, yeah,
exactly. It's like,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
we need to get these fundamentals
There you
because
go.
if you want to be a bodybuilder, then you got to have a freaking good base to be working from. Otherwise, you just all those huge muscles are just pulling you in shapes that your body ain't appreciating, basically.
Mm-hmm. And that's like, we talk about this a lot, like kind of being in touch with your body and actually understanding what's going on, having that conversation with yourself. And I
Mm.
think you said that, obviously we've got the banner up there. Breathing is such a gateway to doing that, and such a gateway to
Mm.
understanding that. And just kind of like, in all its aspects, like, you can actually look at the mechanism of breathing, but then the actual psychology of the position you're sat in and the calmness that you kind of bring to yourself. It just gives you like you're having a chat with yourself right now. You're literally just taking it apart, and just it's just you and yourself. Like, it sounds bonkers to say that, but it's so true. And
That's it.
then the actual ramifications of you getting that stuff right is so widespread, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Completely, man.
Yeah.
It's yeah. You just gotta you gotta get that base right. You gotta get that right, and like um, what can we add to that? Not much really. It's just
Well,
everything works in concert with each other, and when those fundamentals are right, you're getting just basically getting a lot more out of yourself. And this is why, like,
mm,
essentially, it just came down to like um, for me, it was when I realized. So basically, when I got into the industry, it's like I made the career change. I finally made it into the industry, and then started working my way up and became PT and everything. And then in part of that journey was is like, like, all right, I train, I like swing some kettlebells, and I've always been active and everything like that. So it's like, I've got this like idea that I'm strong on some level, and then I go and pick up an innocuous injury, and I'm like, how did I hurt my hip flexor just demonstrating an exercise or something? And then I get it checked out, and it was I got it checked out by like at the time somebody who's like I treated like it was like a mentor for me as well, like a shit hot chiropractor, and just looked at it and was like, oh yeah, you did this. And I was like, oh, but I thought my core was strong. And he was like, nah, ain't. And I went, oh, okay, I need to look at myself. I need to figure this stuff out. I was like, how can I think it's strong when my fundamentals are so off? What the hell don't I understand here? And this is like very early on in my journey, like probably the first 4 months of like just breaking into the industry. And so then I just started thinking, I'm like, am I doing something wrong? And if I'm doing something wrong, does that mean in like 5 years and 10 years and 20 years, I'm just going to be a freaking mess, because I'm building off of crappy fundamentals. And so it's a bit of an extreme thing to do, but it's because I was like so unsure of whether I was doing the right thing for myself. I just stopped training. I just didn't do anything. I looked at fundamentals. I went down to freaking every mobilization in Kelly Starrett's book. And crazily enough, like, Google Photos does this thing where it just shows you like, on this day. And one of the pictures was, several of the pictures were from 2014. So this was on Friday, like Friday or Saturday. It was like on this day in 2014, and a bunch of pictures came up, and a few of them were of me post-mobilization in a squat position and post-mobilization pistol. And I was like, whoa, like number one, I look like a young one. I'm like a baby, like is like clean shaven, short hair, and just the funny thing about it was like, yeah, I just look like a kid. But then also this was post mobilization, and this is where I'm like, I don't know the best way to approach it, so I'm just going to hammer it with everything. And then I'm sitting in a deep squat, and I'm sitting in a pistol, and I'm like, I'm very unstable. You can see it from the pictures. It's like it's very unstable. And so that's what I was doing. I was just experimenting. I was like, what do I need? And what's amazing now is like, we talk about all the time shifting baselines. And in terms of baselines, it's amazing to see those pictures, because it's another one of like, how far you've come and forgetting where you started from. Because I can get out of bed now and sit in a deep squat, or I can get out of bed and do a pistol and be completely fine. Like I wake up in the morning, like I don't have to worry about doing mobilizations straight in the morning. Every now and then you've had a tough workout, you feel stiff, fine. But if you're getting out of bed and you're stiff all the time, it's like, all right, we got some shit to work on. And I'm thankful for that. I don't have that kind of feeling in the morning. It's just it's going to have a lot to do with the fact that I've just put the work in to do that. Especially somebody who's who's in the mid 30s, and theoretically life's supposed to be downhill from now. I'm like, nah, it's going up for me. I ain't taking it that way. And so to be able to look at that when I'm 28, and then I think that would have been 28 there, and then to be 34 years old now and be like, I can do that, but I can do it much more easily, and I can do it when I'm not fresh, and I can do it when I'm not mobile. I'm not theoretically the least mobile I could be at any point in the day, because I'm just working up fresh out of bed. So that was like good to see from that point of view. And but then that's basically what I ended up doing at that time, which was just smashing through how to move like a human being and be a better human being functionally, and figure out and then go down that route. And then like in terms of looking like being strong, I wasn't, but it's because I was spent all this time laying the foundations, and it's not perfect now. It's like, it's not going to be. It's like I'll probably have to go back to being a baby to try and make it be perfect, but it's a lot better off. I'm much more in tune with my body as a result, having gone through that process. And it means that I'm building off a much stronger foundation. So instead of being 34 and probably feeling a bit broken, I'm 34 and feeling like I'm just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's a great place to be. And that's just having that kind of foresight to be like, oh shit, my fundamentals are off. And breathing is a big part of that. And I need to get that shit on point. And I need to move better. I need to learn how to breathe better. And, just because the human body's dynamic, that's always shifting. There's going to be days where you just can't get in tune with how to breathe correctly because you're extremely tired. You might be super stressed out. And that's also the time when you need to do this kind of stuff the most and do more of it. But it's just part of the process. And it's just at those moments, it's just making smart decisions where you're, Did I not say it right?
No, that's cool, bro. Keep going. You're riffing well.
It's man, I've lost it now. But it's like it's part of the process where, just basically because it's so dynamic and you're never going to be on point all the time. So that's fine. But it's just again shifting the baseline so you're more on point more often than than not, and breathing is a fundamental part of that.
I think people listen to this like there's so much noise in the fitness industry. There's so much bullshit in the fitness industry that just like the more that we're in a privileged position to be on the inside of an industry that's just constantly booming, and people are like, we've seen it during lockdown, like people like you saying last time, like people that you don't even jog. Like, why are you jogging? Maybe like there's loads of people out there like kind of that just that I've never done anything before, but now they're getting more and more into it. And obviously, like I said, with the whole COVID-19, people taking much more of an active approach with their health. There's so much noise out there that they don't know where to start, so they end up with Joe Wicks. And it's like I don't dislike the guy, but I just think that there's more fundamentals that people should be made aware of. You know what I mean? It's like PE is cool, but like no one needs to do PE their whole life. You know what I mean? They need to like kind of move with things that you need to actually understand about yourself. And I like the fact that you're moving, fantastic. But if there's something out there that I think people should educate themselves on and kind of be more clued up on, I think it's definitely breathing is up there for sure. So yeah,
big time.
Man. Yeah.
Gonna keep driving it home. The implications of getting it right are vast. So work on getting it right. And like, I mean, if you want to make it relevant to our current times as well, it's like in terms of preventative measures, it's like if you breathe better, you have more of a chance of staving off viruses than if you don't. So if you're nasal breathing, the process of breathing through the nose has more antiviral effect from all the particulates that are floating around in your environment than if you're breathing through the mouth. You've got no protection breathing through the mouth. When you breathe through the nose, it goes through the channels which provide it with like a compound. Like basically, I don't want to go into the science of it, but it provides it with a compound which circulates through your, which ends up only happening because you breathed in through the nose, and that compound allows you to fight off viruses and better than if you didn't breathe that way. So I mean, like, I'm not claiming that there's a cure or anything like that. It's just purely that if you're in a better state of health and you breathe better, you are more likely to stave off any kind of illness, basically.
Fuck yeah, man. Fuck yeah. There's this kind of thing that you watch the evening news. It's like, why are you not on there talking about this? It's like you should legit like we hear all the fear mongering under the sun, but this can actually make a difference. I mean, it's going to actually make a difference.
Is this our Marcus Aurelius Maximus moment where you're like,
there we go.
Need you, and I'll be like, I don't want it with all my heart. You're like, this is why it must be you.
It must be you. It must be you, Grinda. We need to hear from you. Take the mantle, man. Sit there with some fake grey hair and be like, tonight in Britain.
Just I just like the architect in the Matrix there was like vis-a-vis concordantly and just shit. Like, who is this guy? He's like, he ain't no epidemiologist, ain't no virologist. I'm just like, yeah, I'm just some dude just saying breathe better, people.
Yeah. You see that clip of the guy who gets pulled onto the news and he's not supposed to be there?
Oh man, I don't know. Maybe
I don't
it's
know.
like to those kinds of clips, right?
He wanders. This is the best one from BBC, where he just kind of like wanders on and sits down on the chair on the sofa, and then they interview somebody. And it's supposed to be somebody else. It's just him, and he's just there like, I think I need to go. Say it.
It was like this. It was a cleaner guy. It was like some African dude, right, or something.
Yeah, I've not seen. Do you know? I've not seen the clip in so long, but I remember briefly. Yeah, I was just thinking like that. I was like, you just gotta go there and just randomly sit on the sofa and then just start riffing about breathing until you get thrown off. You have to just start talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's live TV. You can't take it back now. It's all good.
There you go. It's out there in the world.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
But bro, that was good. Let's answer some questions. We've got
man.
a couple of questions that came through from our listeners, our people, the people we do this for.
People we do this for. That's it. That's it. What do we have first?
What do we have first? We've got a good one coming in from Mr. Shaddy G, one half of the ephemeral Mr. Prempies.
Oh, yeah.
This gangster has a question for you, and it's a very interesting one because so basically the question is, I ask Umar, what are the benefits of prayer, and what are the benefits of group prayer? So what's the benefits of individual prayer to group prayer and vice versa? And then do you notice a discernible effect of group prayer being missing recently due to lockdown?
That's a really interesting question, man. That's a really left field question. Personally, I can say that when I think about group prayer, I think it's very much about the community, and you go into one building and you all bring yourself to a place where you're all like clean, you've washed, and that kind of you've done your like ablutions before you're about to pray. So you've done the same thing. Effectively, you're bringing yourself to the same place. You're laying your head on the same place, and there is massively an aspect of like togetherness about that. And then when you're in that kind of setting, you definitely feel the vibrations in the room are quite aligned, right? Because we're all there for the common belief, and it's very nice. Like, it's really nice. You walk out of that setting, at least I do, and I feel very, very like I'm part of something bigger. You know what I mean? And then like you kind of hear about these like millions and millions of people around the world who have a similar belief to yourself, and it's a really interesting experience. And then not to have it, or to contrast that with praying on your own. Firstly, I think my experiences with that are quite introspective. Like you're sitting there having a conversation with God on your own, and you're being quite self-effacing, and you're being very much in your own moment. And I think you're very much more aware of yourself when you pray by yourself, as opposed to when you're in a mosque or when you're in a place of worship. So yeah, I think they're quite different experiences. At this time, having gone through the whole of Ramadan without going to a mosque, or even before that, like Friday prayers have been off for a little while. It has been really weird, if I'm honest. It has been really weird. And I think a lot of people have struggled with it. But if I'm honest, I've not desperately like missed it from my routine, because I think I'm quite connected with my way of doing what I do, and I think I get a lot from it. I pray quite slowly. I think that's a rare thing. I think some people kind of pray quite fast, whereas I kind of like to use it as like a time to just check in with myself, check in with where my mind's at. Because if I can really focus on my prayer, then I feel like that's another way of me training. That's the way I see it. Like, it's a way of me training and focusing the mind at an important time. So there's no reason why that training won't filter through to when I'm doing a podcast with yourself. Like, I'm focusing on what you're saying. I'm trying to retain the information. Or if I'm training and I'm going to jiu-jitsu afterwards and I'm trying to focus on the information, it's the same thing. You know, it's the same process, right? And I think in terms of missing it, or in terms of having that community aspect right now, yeah, you do miss it a little bit, but I don't know. I just think the opportunity is there for people to spend more time on their own and take as much out of this time as isolation time as possible to really go deeper with your own feelings toward how you feel when you pray. Yeah. What was the, read me the question again if you can, bro?
Yeah, so that's the benefits of prayer, of individual prayer, the benefits of group prayer, and the difference, the individual prayer versus group prayer. And do you actually? My question there is that do you have a preference, one or the other, like individual or group?
I like both,
Or
man. I like both. I think there's a time and a place for both. I'm not somebody who goes to the mosque every day. I know a lot of people that do that. I pray at home. Recently, I've started to hit like all 5 prayers of the day, and it's nice because you can kind of, you feel very proud that you can structure yourself in that way, that you can kind of move things before, after, all of the above, and have that structure through your day. So I take a lot from that. But then again, the days where, like for instance, Eid has just been, and you kind of, it's an occasion, because you kind of, the way it's explained in my family at least is that the men go to the mosque and they pray, and when they come back they can celebrate with their families, and they kind of come back, and the first thing you say to the person that opens the door is Eid Mubarak, and then everybody else Eid Mubarak, and like you have this nice kind of jovial time. It's lovely. But obviously this time we prayed in our individual homes, and it's a bit of a different feel, so you do miss it. However, personally, I quite like just praying on my own.
Just having that introspective time.
Yeah, man. Yeah. But then I think like we talk about mechanisms and how the process is the same regardless of calling it one thing or another. I think like this is a method of prayer. This is a method of prayer where we talk to somebody, we have that chat in a car with somebody, we'll go for a long drive. It's a process of affirmation, and I think that's what prayer sometimes is. It's like checking in with yourself and your belief, and then just moving forward, knowing that you're focused on what you need to focus on. Like you pray, you'll say a little prayer afterwards, and like kind of just almost like affirm that, yep, I'm doing the right thing, feel good, okay, ready, set, back to life, like that. And then you can kind of check in with yourself in a couple of hours and be like, okay, how did that last couple of hours go? Did I do that right? And I think that introspection is what I get from it quite a lot. That comes from me taking my time praying on my own. Whereas sometimes with group prayer, you can get a little bit more led, because you go, you show up, I like the occasion of it, but I don't necessarily connect with it as deeply as I do with praying by myself.
Okay. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, man. Do you have any experiences with prayer and that kind of stuff?
No, when we were kids, our family was like, we're part of a community it was part of a community which was led by a like a spiritual leader, basically. And so, and then we used to go to temple more often when we were kids. But it was just one of those things where like I respect religion, but I never like resonated with it. And so as soon as I kind of became old enough to separate myself from having to go, just stopped doing it. And but being older, I resonate with what you say. Is like prayer is like, I guess, whatever you want to make it. It's a meditation, and it's like whether you have your own mantras that you're chanting, or it doesn't even have to be chanting. It could be just like just sitting with and focusing on, whether it's a meditation, whether it's like doing a yoga nidra where you're just sitting with your body and checking in for 10 to 30 minutes. That's all like different forms of prayer, because it's like it's in the sense that you describe, where you're checking in with yourself, taking time to be introspective, and using it to help you fuel the rest of your day. And I think there's a lot of power in having a practice like that, where you're doing that several times a day. And so that's where the power of religion comes into it, because it's like it's a way of being, it's a way of living, which it's codified way of living as best as you can and morally as you can. And part of that is to be able to sit with yourself or sit with your group and do this meditative practice. And so I see a lot of value in it. I've just never done it I've never responded to it in no, that might not even be the right word. I've never held a strong interest in doing it in a religious setting. So but what was, and so back in the day when we were kids, is like we met other kids through being part of this community. So we used to have a really good time with all these kids and stuff like that. And then grew the community as well, in the sense that we're all getting together for a particular thing. And so it's just in the same way, everybody gets everybody, like in jiu-jitsu, we can be from completely different backgrounds, but we can get along because we've got that one thing in common, which is jiu-jitsu. And it's the same thing with being part of that religious community, where it's just you're all there together because you have this common thing. Otherwise you were just a bunch of people who would never hang out with each other. And whether it's good for you or not, it's a life experience as well. Whether you hang out with people who wanted to or not, there was some life experience to be had there. So that was, that's as far as the experience goes in terms of religious. And then so the Shad was asking, then do you notice the effect of group prayer being missing recently during lockdown? And you said so you talk about how, like, if it was Eid, you had got together with the family. Is there a feeling that you notice missing associated with not having that group prayer available right now?
If I'm honest, yeah. But at the same time, I think that the thing that's missing is, at least what I identify with more, is missing just seeing your family, and missing kind of that camaraderie. But in terms of group prayer, I suppose that would be for somebody who maybe doesn't have that tie, that family bond. They would look to that community to provide that. So I assume for that person, it would fill the same role that I'm using family gatherings to fill. So I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's weighing really heavily on some people, in the sense that it's a mainstay for some people. Like mosques, it's not something that you will go to a few times a month or whatever. It's like, for some people, it's I will see you here 5 times every single day. I will make the journey from my house to be here every single day 5 times. So, and obviously that's done in a group, and it's pretty intense, man. It's pretty intense. That a lot of people will make it that important part of their life. But personally, not as much. No. Yeah, just missing the family more than anything else.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so how would you sum up the benefits of group prayer?
Benefits group prayer, community, seeing people that again have the same belief systems. I know my cousin brothers, I moved around quite a lot growing up, so I've not really had like one mosque that I've been to. I've been to kind of several. My cousin brothers have like made some really good friends from theirs. And yeah, there's I think there's a lot of benefits, even for like my cousin brothers who are my age have made friends. Even my granddad goes, he has friends that he's kind of made, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of feeling safe in that kind of community. People kind of trust. You're usually from a similar cultural background as well, so you can have that in common with people. I think, like you said, because you know you're going there and you have that common ground, you're more likely to form these bridges and form these bonds. So it makes it easier to find camaraderie in that kind of place, right? So yeah, that's what I put it down to. And then you're obviously the same way that we would go to jiu-jitsu, and there'll be black belts there'll be brown belts there, purple belts, blue belts, and white belts. You can ask somebody, and you can be opened up to so much more information than maybe you'd ever have been on your own. So I can sit here and kind of try and find my own way, but maybe like it's like a thing like 1,000 hours of training alone, or 1 hour with a master. Sometimes it's good to go and visit that master and kind of see. And in this setting, religion, like priests and scholars and learned people in the actual faith are considered like quote unquote kind of masters, right? They're the ones who want to go and see if you have any kind of issues or if you have some questions. So I suppose in that setting there's a lot to be gained.
Yeah, cool. And then from a spiritual sense, what do you see as the main difference between praying on your own and praying in a group?
I think there's a bit of this interesting, right? So there's a collective, like, you know how like in the Christian faith they say Amen. We'll say Amen. It's very close. I don't know the actual how closely linked they are to meaning the same thing. I suppose we're all like Abrahamic religions, right? We have that link.
What does Amen mean?
I don't actually know, if I'm honest. I think it's like a pray to then at the end of a recitation, we will I think it's asking God to accept what we've just prayed for, if I'm honest. If like, but I don't know the actual literal translation. I'll ask. It's a good question.
Yeah, cool.
And when we say that when we're at home, we'll say it on our own. But when we say it in a mosque, there's usually a couple hundred people saying it at the same time. So you feel the voice as one, and that's quite a powerful thing. And I've been to mosques in the past. I used to go to a mosque when I used to work in Mayfair, and it was just a house. It was a 5-story house in Mayfair that been converted into a mosque. And I swear, man, the walls would shake. The walls would shake with like everyone saying it at the same time, and it would really bounce because the rooms were quite small. They weren't that small, but they would get you in one room. You would get 60 people standing shoulder to shoulder, really kind of packed in, and like you'd pray, and then this is a whole house full of people, and then like at one point everyone says it together, and then like there's verses of the prayer, and as you kind of get to a certain point, everyone says it again, and it's quite a powerful moment. You know, you standing there, and you kind of feel okay, this is cool. You know what I mean? You kind of get that community / like tribe kind of feel. So that's quite powerful on a spiritual level. You think, okay, these people are all connected. We're all connected to the same thing. It's nice.
Yeah, nice. And so that's I guess that's the missing piece right now. Is like there's a less connection right now.
Good shout, man. Good shout for sure.
Yeah, cool, man.
We had questions about some dinosaurs, right?
Oh man, Frank the Tank. Frank, we got a legit question coming in from you. I made the Instagram story. I was like, nutrition, like training, philosophy, mindset, whatever you want to know about, just give us a shout. We'll help you out with it. My man comes up with a sick question. What's your favorite dinosaur?
As a segue from Shad's question, I couldn't be better. Couldn't be better, yeah. It's just like, but I have a question. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you got to answer for that, G. What's your favorite dinosaur?
Man, I haven't thought about that since I was a kid. Basically, I was like, when I was a kid, I was all up in the dinosaurs' grill, man. I was just like reading stuff about them. Like Jurassic Park came out, I was like 8 years old or something, so it was like legit 7 or 8 years old. And then the only thing I remember is like, you know, that cartoon movie, The Land Before Time, and Littlefoot is going on his adventure. You know, it's a pretty deep movie, man. He loses his mom in it. He has to rely on his friends. He's got to ask for help. There's so many moral stories, moral lessons learned from that kids movie. And yeah, man, I just and because of my freaking long neck that everybody loves to grab hold of at jiu-jitsu, I just can't get out, man. I can't get out of these jokes, bro. Keep leaving it out there. I need to do this to shrink. I need to be up here. This is why I'm working on my traps so much, man. I'm trying to get. It has to be the Brachiosaurus, right?
Love it.
Yeah, that was it. And I haven't thought about it. Yeah, just because of my neck. That's it. That's the only how this I resonate with that thing. But I don't know. I actually don't even know the true
Solid
answer.
answer. Solid
just
answer.
remember from being a kid. What about you,
Yeah,
man?
man. We kind of riffed on this a bit before coming on air, right? I was like,
Yeah.
is Godzilla a dinosaur? If so, defo picking Godzilla. Like as a badass dinosaur. Like,
Exactly, man. He's real.
my man
He exists.
he can that scene in the first Godzilla, the most recent first installment, not the second one where he fights all the monsters, but the one where he just fights the two mutos.
Yeah,
When he's at the end and he lights his tail and you just see it kind of sparking up his body and then he just breathes electronic fire. It's just like, the fuck is this?
It's like into the mouth. So I was like,
okay. So epic.
Yeah,
so like, whoever initially thought of that, yeah, you need everyone collectively. Like we should do the NHS clap for that person. Like just like whoever thought of that, like you know what, this dinosaur should have like a lighting up, like sparks on his back that light up, and then he just unleashes hell like out of his mouth. Like,
it's the thing, right? When you think about how like this shit gets made, but if you think about the process behind it, and you're like, these were actual conversations that must have had to happen. Where it's like, it's like, should it be cool if we had that looked like a dinosaur and it had some electricity going up its back and then it shot fire? You're like, wait a second, hang on. How? Yes, brilliant. I love how you're getting a raise.
Like, everyone stands up. God damn.
It's genius. Why didn't I think of that?
So perfect. So it's like your brother says it. I remember Sam saying it, like that shit doesn't happen on purpose, by accident. Like somebody had to like go through the process with that shit. Same way we're chatting about going through the process with life. Like someone's life is going through the process of making Godzilla happen. And thank you, because that is my favorite dinosaur. 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%.
Man, Godzilla is he's a dinosaur. That's it. We've decided. And at the very least, he did exist, and he's legit. And
legit as fuck, man. Yeah,
that's a sick answer for Godzilla.
I was thinking, I'm like, yep. Who do I resonate? Which dinosaur would I resonate with the most?
Yeah,
that guy spends his time screaming and swimming, and if he's not screaming, he's breathing fire in your face. Sounds like my kind of dinosaur.
Exactly, he's breathing. Yeah, they're right.
Oh yeah, he's definitely getting it right.
Fire, man. That's passion right there.
So that's the last benefit of breathing is that if you get so good at it, you might have to breathe fire one day. That's unlock level Godzilla of breathing.
Exactly. Yeah, that should be, man. We should create a course, and that's what it's going to be called. Unlock level Godzilla. Right now, you're just like, your baby Littlefoot. And you're gonna build yourself up a little bit to a Muto, and then you're gonna go for Godzilla.
That's the one, man. That's the one. We can all dream, right? We can all dream.
Yeah, exactly, man. That's it, man. I think that wraps us up for today.
I'm down for that, man. That was good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, as always, man. That was good. There's some good stuff we got covered there. And thank you to Shadi G and Frank the Tank for questions, and we'll get some more out there as well. So anybody who does have a question for us, you should definitely get in touch with us. Instagram is a good way to do that. My handle is at gsanducoach, which is GSANDHUCOACH. What about you, Mo?
So my handle is Umar Malik, UMARMALIK_91, and on Facebook under Umar Malik as well. So just drop a DM, anything you want us to discuss, happy to do so, anything that's pertaining to yourself or just random questions like what dinosaurs we fancy. I mean, we're all game, we're game for it all, man. We're game for it all.
Yeah, exactly. And then if there's particular parts of the conversation that you feel like want us to delve more into, then we're down for it. Just give us a shout. We will incorporate that. We'll take your questions and run with them, and keep providing that value.
Yeah, buddy.
Okay, good stuff, people.
Nice,
bro. I'll
see you later, guys.
Till next time.
Yep.